All right. Okay. Show first show and then go like this. So the one who's sponsoring this year tonight is Rabbi Shmuel Eagle. Shmuel Eagle of Crown Heights, Brooklyn. So, you want to?
Nah, North Miami Beach, Florida.
North Miami Beach, Florida. Okay.
Okay, this is the code. Abba's phone was lighter than Baruch's phone. Abba's phone is more lighter than Baruch's phone.
Oh, nice.
La la la.
Does it show me? Yeah, whatever.
Oh,
so Chocas.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
So every day is a date, and the Rebbe focuses on the date that this Sikha was given. It was Shabbos. That's 7. Now it's number 7. It was also Yud Tammuz. The Rebbe says everything is Rekacha Pratis. The Rebbe starts talking about how the lunar cycle works and how the sun cycle works. How you call solar and lunar. So the Rebbe says everything is Rekacha Pratis. And since these dates are on the calendar and they actually dictate the Jewish day every day, there must be a lesson in Avodas Hashem for us, how to serve Hashem, since even the sun and the moon and everything in the world was created for the Jew. People say the Jew is here and Hashem gave everything in the Jew, so the Jew finds himself in the world and now he can learn from the world how to serve Hashem. The Rebbe says, the Rebbe turns it around 360 degrees. The Rebbe says, no, it's the other way around. Everything was created for the Jew. Not being prejudiced or anything, just that's the way Hashem chose to be. I would have been born something else. I would have taken it maybe prejudice, but it's not prejudice. It's just the way God described in the Torah that the Rebbe says. The Torah says the Jew is the purpose of creation. Right away in the first Rashi of the whole Torah, it says the world was created for the Jew and for the Torah. And then Rashi says between those two, which one is higher? It's the Jew. Because the whole Torah is commandments for the Jew, to serve the Jew. So what are these dates? The Rebbe says we have to learn something from the sun and something from the moon. And both of them come in the same day. They come on Shabbos. On Shabbos it was Shabbos, so that represents number 7. And in the month it was Yud Tammuz. 7 represents the way the world was created. Complete world by Hashem. Everything was created from Hashem. We go through 7 days a week. Come Shabbos, it's not dependent on us. We can't do anything about it, or for it, or against it, God forbid. Sunday goes, Monday comes, Tuesday comes, Wednesday, then we get to Shabbos by way of force, not by way of choice. That represents the way the world was created by Hashem, not by us. Everything was complete. Then we have the monthly date, which was the 10th of Tammuz, and the monthly is something that the Jews contributed to 100%, because that's the first mitzvah we were commanded when we left Egypt, to sanctify the month, sanctify the moon, to bless the moon, and to create a month date on the calendar. And it's called Chodesh. Chodesh comes from the word Chidush, to make something new, make something that was not there before. This represents something that was created by the person himself, by the avodah, by the service of the person himself. The person is actually doing something from below, going above to Hashem, drawing godliness above the world through his service to Hashem. This is signified by the date we find ourselves in, the 7th day of the week and the 10th day of the month, Shabbos Yud Tammuz. The 7 shows on how the world was created complete by Hashem, by the 7 midas of Hashem. And the 10th day of the month shows the completion that was created by the person himself. So we have the world, 7 days of the week. It was created by the 7 midos, 7 attributes of Hashem. And then the 3 moichin, Chochmah, Bina, Das, is the 3 that make up for the 10. And the 3 are the additional service of the person. We actually bring about the influence of the 3 that was not there. The world was created by 7 attributes of Hashem. Chesed, Bina, Gvura, Tiferet, Netzach, Yesod, Hod, Malchus. And then the 3, Chochmah, Bina, Das, is what we actually add through our avodah. And all this is connected to Shiva Asar Tammuz, the 17th of Tammuz, which will happen the Shabbos following that. That Shabbos was the 10th of Tammuz. 7 days later will be 17. So, the Rebbe says, there on the 17th of Tammuz, we will see the good was actually revealed good, because 17th of Tammuz is a day of fast. But what happens when it falls on Shabbos? You don't fast. So, the Rebbe says, here we see the pnimius, the inner significance, inner greatness of a fast day. The Rambam says that those fast days will come out to be the biggest festivals for the Jewish people, higher than the festival of Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuos, higher than those. We don't really see it nowadays in exile, but when Mashiach will come, we will see him. And all because, why will those turn to be the biggest holidays of the year? Because they all have to do with the destruction of the temple. Apparently, destruction is something sad. But the Rebbe says that the lower the descent, the higher the ascent. If you destroy something, it's in order to build something better. Hashem doesn't destroy. Even the halacha says you can't destroy a shul unless you plan to build a better shul. You can't. It's halacha. You're not allowed to destroy a shul unless you have to build another one. So too with the Beis HaMikdash. The very fact that the destruction took place is only for the sake of building the third one. The construction of the third one could not start before the demolition of the second. So that was like the breaking of the stone, when they make the ceremony where they put the stone for the building, for the construction of another building going to happen. And then they start the building of that place. That's a very big ceremony. And that's why, believe it or not, it was the happiest day, the Rebbe says, for the Jewish people inwardly. In other words, undercover, knowing that now the construction of the third temple can start taking place. 17 of Tammuz will fall on Shabbos. If Shabbos will be the 10th, then the following Shabbos will be 17th, and that's a fast day. He will speak more about fasting next Sikha, not this one. And the Rebbe says, that's a revealed good. That's a Tov Garlut, a revealed good that you see the real way that actually 17 of Tammuz, which is a fast day, falls on Shabbos, and we actually eat, and even eat more, in order not to make people think that maybe it should have been a fast day, so maybe we should eat less. The Rebbe says, no, so you eat extra, in order to show people that really you're not trying to retract and say, no, you add on to the meat, to the wine, to the fish, to the bread, everything else you eat, to show more simcha. So, how does that connect to Parshat Chukas? The Rebbe says, those two greatnesses are found in the Parah Aduma, in the red heifer. He should burn the red heifer. This symbolizes the Ratzoi. The Ratzoi of the Jew, the wish, the feeling that the Jew has in his service to Hashem, if he ascends, if he succeeds, if he does well, and he really is concentrated and focused on his contemplation on Hashem, and he learns a lot. He starts contemplating, and he goes to the level of Nadav and Avihu and all those guys who totally left their body, departed from their body. They were so attached and so cleaved to God, they actually expired from their bodies. So the Rebbe says, no, we don't need expiration of soul from the body. We need soul in bodies, and we could be as holy and much holier than Nadav and Avihu and get to higher levels than them, soul in the body. So Sarfat Apara. Sarfat Apara means burning the red heifer, burning that cow, shows that this burning emotion that the Jew goes through by wishing to expire from his body. He wants to cleave to God. Like the Alter Rebbe says, I don't want anything. I don't want all the things you have good, Gan Eden, all those levels. I don't want anything. I want you. That feeling of expiration, the neshama wants to leave the body. Like the little candle goes in front of the big flame of fire and it just cleaves onto it. It just wants to expire. Even though it will have no existence anymore, it still wants to do it. So too the Jew feels the same way. That's burning the cow. And then, V'nasan alav mayim chayim al keli, but you have to bring, the halacha is, the red heifer, you have to bring the water into the keli before after the actual burning of the cow, you have to bring water into the keli. V'nasan alav mayim chayim al keli, that shows that you have to go back. Hashem wants you here in this world. Mayim chayim el keli, you have to be in the vessel. The body has to be, the soul has to be left intact in the body. Not to tamper with that. No matter how much you want to cleave to God and how much you feel like you want to expire, God forbid, that's not the purpose. The purpose is to stay here in this world and do everything b'simcha. Not like what the Meraglim did. They wanted to stay in the desert. Very, very refined sin. Until the Rebbe actually revealed this to us, everyone, the whole world, until Hasidus came about. They thought these people were the worst people, whatever. The Rebbe turned it around 360 degrees despite the awesome punishment they received to die and the way they died. But the Rebbe says that all the reason was because they wanted to cleave to God on a higher level. That's the only reason they wanted to stay in the desert. Very refined type of sin. We won't do really anything that. So the Rebbe says the Pnimis Utera, which was revealed on Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz. You should know the Rebbe makes a little note that says that Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz is even higher than Yutes Kislev. Unbelievable. Spreading out of Chassidus, we would think Yutes Kislev, Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus, and everything else in this, everything else that is involved. And the Rebbe says that Yud Beis Gimel Tammuz is even higher. That's why it was revealed later, much later than Yutes Kislev. It's on a much higher level and spread out of Chassidus. Is to no comparison from the time of the Alter Rebbe to the Frierdiker Rebbe. And Frierdiker Rebbe spread out of Chassidus was on a much, much, much higher level. In fact, the Rebbe says we can't imagine, we can't really picture this, but the Rebbe says if not for the Frierdiker Rebbe's active work in Russia and outside of Russia, we would not be sitting here today. We don't understand what this means. I don't understand to this day what this means. But the Rebbe says it's a fact. The fact that we should know that this would not be right now, we would not actually be sitting here learning and enjoying everything else we're enjoying without the Frierdiker Rebbe taking action on this. That's what the Rebbe says. So whether they arise, directives from the Sikha is 7 and 10. Remember, we started with 7 and 10. And both these numbers, we have a lesson to learn in Avodas Hashem. The Rebbe says we have to work with 7 and 10 every day and every week and every time. Aleph, first we have to add in learning a Nigla and Chassidus. Nigla is like 7. Hashem gave Chamisha Chumsha Torah to Moshe Rabbeinu came. That was the complete Torah. But the Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Gemara, and all the Nigla, that represents number 10, because that's already the work of men. Even though the whole Gemara was given to Moshe Rabbeinu, but it was given in concealed fashion. Moshe Rabbeinu only received the general institutions, general rules. Came all the rabbis, all the people that came afterwards, even though everything was already given to Moshe Rabbeinu, but they extrapolated everything out of the general rules, and that's the Torah Sheba'al Peh that we have today. So that came out from the work of men, even though Moshe Rabbeinu received it, but it's not called in his name, so to speak. It's called in the name of the people that actually extrapolated from all these rules and made a big Torah Sheba'al Peh. Everything is exact, everything is accurate. Nothing is, God forbid, added or renovated by any person. Everything was given to Moshe Rabbeinu. But the Rebbe says we have to add both in learning Nigla and Chassidus. Chassidus is represented by number 10. And the Rebbe says to learn Chassidus be'iyun. So the Rebbe mentions in the Sikha that just like the Sfardim that are coming out to print nowadays, and Chassidim that looked into what the Rebbe meant, those days the Rebbe said the Sikha, Derech Mitzvah Secha, wasn't the first time it came out. Secha was from the time of Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe says it. But Derech Mitzvah Secha was printed out in much more publishings. In other words, many more copies of Derech Mitzvah Secha were put out to print right around the time the Rebbe said Sikha of Chukot. So, and there, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek, he takes Inyan and Chassidus, and he explains it according to Nigla, and then according to Chassidus, and he goes into Iyun. He actually goes into depth, trying to understand the whole concept. So the Rebbe says we have to learn Chassidus, not just the Girsa, but also the Iyun. And a lot of Chassidim were saying the Rebbe was referring to Derech Mitzvah Secha as well. Besides Sichas from the Rebbe, which also do the same thing. They take a concept and the Rebbe goes into Iyun, into depths and depths of the issue, and dissects the issue from every point of the matter. So Sichas from the Rebbe is obviously included in this instruction. And then the Rebbe says to learn exactly what we just mentioned before with the Derech Mitzvah Secha, where Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Tzemach Tzedek takes a Inyan from Nigle, explains it according to Chassidus, and then he goes into Be'iyun, into the whole subject. Then the Rebbe says, do a mitzvah behider. Try to do the kavanah of the mitzvah. Every mitzvah has its own kavanah, but the Rebbe knows that we don't know all the kavanahs for all the mitzvahs. What do? The Rebbe is actually right away turning over to the mitzvah of tzedakah, to give it with hider. Hider means to give it with the heart, complete heart, to be associated with the person, try to feel what the person feels, to give him with a kind face and a kind show of willingness to give the person so the person feels better. The Rebbe says this is a hider in the giving of tzedakah. When you give tzedakah, to give it with good intention, and the person should feel you're really giving it to him from the heart. Not just money-wise, but also talking-wise. When you're talking about another person, the Rebbe says, also thinking about another Jew. I just traveled with a Jew, with a very precious Jew. Every Jew is precious. I was driving with him back from the doctor. I took him to the doctor. So we're coming back, and I'm telling him that a woman called me up now, and her husband was arrested in immigration jail. She's saying, Aiyal, listen, we have to open up Igros Kodesh for him. I don't know what to do, what's going to be. So the Rebbe gave a very big brachas. The Rebbe says it will be Pidyon Shvuim, complete Pidyon Shvuim. The Rebbe gave very big brachas over there. Then I asked her, I said to her, you keep Shabbos? Well, that's very hard for me. We're really trying. It's really, really hard. It's very big for us, Shabbos. Then I said, how about kashrus? You eat kosher? She says, outside, we go to places. Inside the house, everything is kosher. That's impossible. That was it. And then I asked kashrus, Shabbos, and she was also learning a little bit of chitas. She started before, then she stopped, and the Rebbe says over there, and then the letter, the Rebbe says, what should I do in order to make this woman go back to learning? And I asked her, are you learning? Or you learned before? She says, yes, and I stopped. I learned, I started chitas, and then I stopped. I said, the Rebbe is saying here, what can I do in order to make all the women start learning again? So she said she will go back to learning. You see, there's a very unbelievable thing that happens with Igros Kodesh. That the minute people start writing to the Rebbe, they change their lives. They at least take one good step towards changing their lives, for sure. Because they're writing. And you always tell them, the Rebbe says, in order to receive a bracha, to be a recipient, to be a good keli, to receive the bracha, you should take on yourself a little small thing. 2% of what you're doing from now. Not anything big. The Yetzirah says, do something big, then you don't do nothing. So she said, yes. And she took this on herself to start learning chitas again. And I told her it has nothing to do with keeping kosher or not. You're not doing a favor to God, but you should know something. The Rebbe writes many, many letters on kashrus that the Jewish body is not like the Goyish body. The Jewish body has nothing to do with Torah mitzvahs. You're not doing a favor to Hashem and not being religious by keeping kosher. It's for your health. Because if you, God forbid, get sick or really sick, it has to do a lot with not eating kosher. I told the Rebbe writes this in many, many letters. Haguf Yisraeli lo yachol lisbol ochel lo kasher. The Rebbe writes, the Israeli body, the Jewish body cannot tolerate non-kosher food, nothing to do with religion now. So she really took it to heart, and she's taking also steps towards keeping Shabbos now. So you see, the minute people open up Igros Kodesh, it really, really changes their lives. That's a it's a real miracle in and of itself, Igros Kodesh. So that person that was sitting next to me when I was riding home with him, how could these Jews not keep Shabbos? How could they just listen? You have to speak schus. This is what the Rebbe is saying in the Sikha. To teach schus on another Jew. Not just to talk good about them, but also think good about them. It's amazing. Just think about it. If you try to do it, it's not easy. But practice makes perfection. Especially me. I'm talking all to myself. Not giving Musar because I'm just reading out the Sikha to everyone, but God forbid nobody should think I'm giving them Musar. I'm talking to myself. It's very hard to stop talking bad about somebody, let alone stop thinking bad. You got to start thinking good. That's unbelievable. That's when you try to do that, it drives you to different worlds, drives you to different atmospheres, different worlds, different cycles, and you start thinking good about this Jew. And the Rebbe says in another Sikha, not here, the Rebbe says that because a Jew is similar to Hashem, and Hashem can create by just thinking, because by Hashem, potential is not missing actual. That's what it's called. Koyach lo chaser poel. When Hashem is not like us. If we think, we don't do. But by Hashem thinking, He already does. So by us thinking good, we actually make the Jew become good. That Jew, over there. Because we are similar to Hashem, we can create, literally create. By thinking good about the specific guy, we can actually make him become good. It's incredible. The power that we have. Then the Rebbe says, give a good advice to your friends, and also speak about him and think about him good. Also influence others to do the same as you do. See someone, that's why I tried it. I was doing this, just that. All riding back home with him, I was telling him, you have to think good because you should know. I was actually kind of like threatening him. I said to him, how do they judge you above? You're now judging, you're putting judgment on that person, you're saying that person is bad. So you actually already wrote his statement, you wrote out his judgment. So in Shemayim, what they do is they bring you to the same exact situation. And when you go through the same situation and you fail, they take the judgment you put on the other person and put it on you. So he was like, oh no, don't start with this. Don't start with this. I'm not passing judgment. These are good people. They're actually good people. You know that? They're actually good. The mother of that guy was so good to me. Started talking good about them. Everything changed drastically. Don't worry. Not threatening, God forbid. God is not a butcher. God is just telling you. Okay, influence others about this. Now the Rebbe says the last instruction is to arrange, to make sure the older Verbrengens for you basic Gimel Tammuz and to receive good achlatos. Torah, mitzvahs, and afatas, and mayanos. Chi Adonenu Moreinu Rabbeinu Melech HaMashiach Le'elam Vayed.
Oh, maybe here.
What do we get from numbers in 7 and 10? 7 is the way Hashem did it, and 10 is the way we're bringing it about. 10 is the main thing.
Related to this week's
10 is how we're mechadish. We have to be mechadish.
It was it wasn't with the parsha. It was with the year. It's the exact same as this year.
Your time is
it's 10.
It falls on Shabbos.
Now it's 7.
7 Shabbos.
The week.
Shabbos, the week, the day of the week, Shabbos. So 7 and 10.
7 is the sun and the 10th is the moon.
I wanted to
right?
get ice cream and I didn't have time. I just didn't have time because I was writing that person back from the doctor. It took up.
It's okay. It's probably better for us that you didn't.
Took up my whole day. Took up my whole day, literally, like 4 hours. I went to his eye doctor.
Oh, you did.
He actually record the whole thing. That's very good. Usually doesn't record anything.